Today, Honda announced a pretty significant update to their NC750X commuter bike, as well as the X-ADV scooter-style step-through adventure bike, which is based upon the same engine and chassis. There are improvements to the power, electronics, styling, and more. So in today's video, we'll look over the specs and find out everything that's new for the next model year. But before we get started, if you're new here and you want to see all of the latest new bikes for 2021, then please do remember to hit subscribe. I'll be covering as many as I can over the next month or two while the announcements from all the major manufacturers come thick and fast, so be sure to subscribe if you want to see each video as soon as it goes live. The 750cc parallel twin engine used in both of these bikes is well known for its low to mid-range torque and a notable forward tilt that helps to keep the centre of gravity low. For 2021, Honda have revised the valve timing, and combined with a new exhaust system, they've managed to raise the red line by 600 RPM to 7,000. The result of this extra reviness is an increase in peak power of 4 horsepower, moving to 54 at 6,250 revs, up to 58 horsepower at 6,750. It's not at the sacrifice of low-end torque though, with an extra Newton-meter produced to give a peak of 69 at the same 4,750 RPM as the previous generation. Honda also claim that it can hold on to an increased torque output for longer above 5,000 RPM. In addition to the extra power, they've also improved the snappiness of the bike's acceleration by shortening the first 3 gears, whilst taller ratios for the 4th, 5th and 6th gears help to return the best possible fuel efficiency on the motorway. These changes are true for both the manual and DCT versions. On top of this, the manual version gets a slip assist clutch for 2021, which pulls the clutch pack together under load, meaning that lighter springs can be used. Honda say that this results in a 20% lighter feel at the lever, whilst the slipper function prevents the rear wheel from locking up under aggressive downshifts. There are changes in the electronics department too, firstly with a ride-by-wire throttle which opens the possibility of riding modes. The NC750X now gets the same 3 predefined modes as the likes of the CB1000R, with a standard, sport and rain mode, all affecting power delivery, engine braking and traction control. There's also a user mode which allows the rider to dial in their own personal preference, and traction control now comes with 3 levels instead of the 2 of the previous generation, as well as the option to fully disable it. Level 2 is the default setting, whilst Level 1 allows for more rear wheel spin if riding off-road, for example. Level 3 provides the most intervention, which could come in handy in slippery conditions. The DCT version, which for the uninitiated is akin to an automatic gearbox, uses 2 clutches to switch between gears seamlessly and is also tied into the riding modes. In rain mode, for example, the shifts are more relaxed, whereas in the sports mode, it'll hold on to the gears for longer in order to reach the sort of revs at which you'll experience peak power. Also new for 2021 is an LCD dash, which allows for management of the rider modes through the buttons on the left-hand switchgear. The NC750X uses LED lighting all round, and the headlight and taillight have both been redesigned, whilst the rear indicators now feature an emergency stop signal function. This means that when the bike detects deceleration above a certain threshold, i.e. an emergency stop, it'll flash the hazards at the rear in order to warn traffic behind. Indicators are also self-cancelling, comparing the speed of the front and rear wheels to determine the time at which it's appropriate to cancel the indication. Both of these seem like sensible safety features which are great to see as standard on this bike. Lastly, from the electronics is now the option to fit a USB-C port in order to keep your devices charged. There have been some pretty significant changes to the chassis too, with a newly designed frame which, using varying tube thickness, saves over 1.8 kilograms over the last generation. Combined with the 1.2 kilograms saved on the engine and additional weight savings elsewhere, the curb weight is 6 kilograms lighter than the outgoing model at 214 kilograms for the manual version and 224 kilograms for the DCT. That should make it notably more nimble and zippy, and a 30mm reduction in seat height, now at 800mm, should also be a comfort to shorter riders. This has been achieved by taking over 30mm out of the suspension travel, which you could say will lessen its capability off-road. But realistically, not many of these actually go off-road despite the adventure bike-inspired styling, and it's really a solid practical commuter, not a trail bike, so this seems like a sensible choice by Honda. On top of that, the bodywork has been overhauled with a sharper, more aggressive look, with a new LED headlight and running lights setting the front end off nicely. Side by side with the last generation, it definitely looks more up to date. Practically, the screen has been improved for better wind and weather protection, and relocating the battery has meant that the storage compartment in what would be the tank has increased in capacity by a litre to 23. All in all, that makes for some pretty neat updates to the NC750X for 2021, with more power, less weight, shorter gearing for acceleration, taller gearing for cruising, a better dash, riding modes, better looks, and some improvements in comfort and practicality. And thankfully, the majority of these changes carry over to its scooter-esque sibling, the X-ADV. I didn't really understand what this bike was about until I borrowed one from Honda and absolutely loved it. It has the grunt and motorway capability of a motorcycle, but with the hop-on, hop-off ease of use of a scooter, and with some of the looks of an Africa Twin. There's a link in the description to my full review in case you haven't already seen it. So for 2021, it gets the extra revs and power from the same parallel twin engine as the NC, as well as the revised gearing and Euro 5 compliance. And it also gets the same ride-by-wire update, opening up the same riding modes of standard, sport, rain and user configurable, but on top of those it also gets a gravel mode which gives full throttle response and engine braking with less intervention from the traction control and ABS. It might sound a bit fanciful that it would make a good gravel bike, but remember that a lightly modified X-ADV won its class in the 2019 edition of the Gibraltar Rally, which covers some 7,000 kilometers, so in the right hands it can do it. The other big update which sets it apart from the NC is that it gets a full-color 5-inch TFT dash which enables smartphone connectivity with voice commands. This means that you can control phone calls, email, music and navigation with either your Bluetooth headset or the buttons on the left-hand switchgear. Personally, on a practical bike like this where you might be commuting or doing a bit of motorway work, I think that built-in nav and the ability to control it without having to look away from the road is a massive plus. Like the NC, curb weight is down owing partially to a redesigned frame, dropping 3 kilograms on the last generation at 236. The windscreen has also been improved, the storage compartment increased in size, a USB socket added, emergency brake lights added too, the handbrake has been moved to the handlebars which makes room for a glove compartment, and while the X-ADV retains its longer travel suspension in case you do fancy taking it off-road, they've narrowed the floorboard area to make it easier to get your feet down. All of this in a package that has been sharpened up visually with all of the bodywork redesigned for a more chiseled look. I really like what they've done with the LED daytime running lights at the front end, and I also prefer it without the graphical paint job in this flat finish. It looks more modern and sleek to me. Again, here's a side-by-side with the outgoing model to show just how much more up-to-date it looks. And that rounds off Honda's update to their adventure range with the new tricolour paint job for the base Africa Twin announced a few weeks back, and the new Euro 5 compliant update for the CB500X. I'd love to know what you think of them down in the comments below, especially which one you'd pick out of these two bikes. My instinct would be to go for the NC750X because it's more or less a regular motorcycle and you do have the option of a manual gearbox, but on the other hand, I really enjoyed the twist and go fun of the X-ADV and it looks even better in this 2021 iteration. Let me know your pick in the comments below, and if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and I'll catch you next time.